This chapter is about oligopoly, and oligopoly is a type of market structure where we have few number of firms, could be three or more, and this market has many characteristics. So barrier to entry is very high. It's difficult for new companies to get into this market. Market power is practiced here, where these firms can use prices and control prices, and products are not identical, but those firms are doing business within an industry. So in the industry of automobile, we might see small number of firms competing each other. In communication industry, we could also find few number of communication companies competing each other. In airline or aviation industry, we could also see small number of airline companies competing each other. Okay, these are the learning objectives. So high barrier to entry. We will use game theory to analyze competition and payoffs and strategies used by firms within the industry, but usually we will use our analysis on only two firms instead of three. So there will be a game running there, and we'll use the sequential games to analyze business strategies and competition forces to analyze competition. So this is the definition of oligopoly. Again, barriers of entry is so high, where it will be difficult for new companies to get into this industry. One important characteristic of this market is that companies in this market are operating at economies of scale. So we expect that those companies are huge and they produce or sell high number of products. So the more they sell and the more they produce, their average costs are expected to decline as they increase number of products sold or products produced. And economies of scale can give those companies some power on prices. So when the average costs decrease and they produce at minimum average cost, they welcome reduction in prices to any point but above the minimum average cost that they run their business at. And here we will see graphical example of what we have just said about economies of scale. So let us pretend here or assume that we have three companies. So Carrefour, Lulu, and Mira. So we see these companies, they are supermarkets, and they are huge, and they almost control the supermarket industry in Qatar. So because they are huge and they have to sell huge number of their products offered, so we expect their average total cost is like this U-shaped, although this analysis in the long run, but those companies, they should increase their products until they reach the minimum long run average cost like this. So because they have the ability to benefit from economies of scale, so the more they increase the scale, the more they increase the scale, the lower the average cost is going to be. And this explains why they are huge and they offer a huge and large number of products. This is because they want to benefit from economies of scale. But other companies that are small in size like groceries, those groceries, they because they are small in size, they don't benefit much from economies to scale. And if they are in this market, their long run average total cost is going to be like this. And the more they increase the scale or the product, the more they increase. So if they increase their product until they reach the minimum, but again, because they are small in size, their minimum average total cost is above or more than the average total cost of those companies which are very large. So that's why Carrefour and Lulu and Mira, they on average offer lower prices than those groceries, because these companies are benefiting from scale economies. And this is what is happening in reality. If you go to any grocery and you compare the prices of the grocery to prices offered by those huge companies or big companies, you will find that those groceries offer higher prices than uh, Carrefour and Lulu and Mira. Why? Because they have the ability to reduce the prices more than those groceries, and they could go to this bottom. But on the other hand, those groceries, which are small in size, the maximum reduction in price they can go is to reach this, because otherwise they will get out of the market. Okay, we continue. It could also be true, as it is explained in this slide, that because a firm controls or owns a particular input, it could control the whole industry, and then it places barrier to entry to compete in this industry. And here we are talking about few firms that have ownership on special inputs, and they control the whole industry, placing barrier to entry so that no new companies can enter this industry and compete with them. Likewise, when there is patent on a special product like medicine, and a company or a few companies produce this product or this medicine which has patent, so it will be protected by the government laws, and nobody can enter this industry of producing this type of medicine and come to compete. And this will make this industry with few numbers of producers of this type of medicine which has patent. Okay. Now to analyze the profitability and actions of firms competing in oligopoly type of structure of market. So here we don't use the regular graphical presentation or analysis, but we prefer to use game theory analysis. So we use game theory to analyze the actions and behaviors or strategies or decisions. Why? Because the companies or firms competing in this market structure or oligopoly, they are interdependent, which means their actions are interdependent. One action could have influence on the actions of another firm. So that's why it's written here that profits of each firm depend on its interaction with the other firm. So they look each other what the parties or their competitors do, and they might adjust their actions upon what they see from the other competitors. If situation is happening like this, the good model to use to analyze these actions is the game theory model. And the three analyses that we depend on within this model are the uh, the actions, then those actions might be determined within some specific rules. The second thing is the strategies that they adopt to achieve their objectives, and the results that we might see from this interaction that could lead to some payoff or the gain that they might get. So some rules and then strategies and payoffs. And if we define strategy is the action that is adopted or utilized to achieve a certain goal. And the goal each firm should have or expected to have is to maximize profits. Just to draw your attention here is that within an industry there might be few firms. So this is oligopoly. So there are few firms, but we might use the game theory to analyze the interaction between two firms. That's why in analysis we just choose two firms, and choosing two firms will make the industry to look like a duopoly. Duopoly is a competition between only two firms in an industry. Okay. So we have this example in supermarket industry or mega supermarket industry, which could have many firms, but we pick two firms, Lulu and Carrefour. So we have two firms in this industry that we are analyzing the interaction between them, Lulu and Carrefour, and we want to know what strategies they have to explain the actions and the payoffs from these actions. But now we said just 1 minute ago that any action taken by one company or one firm is closely watched by the other firm. So by collecting all these information here, we come up with this matrix or this table. So this table shows the two companies and their actions and the payoffs. So in this action, there is a product and they want to charge price for that product. So there are two prices, either 600 or $400 or real or dollar here. So these are the actions, is to charge either 600 or 400 for the product. So each company can charge either 600 or 400 for a product. Company A or Lulu and company B or Carrefour. Each one of them could charge one of these two prices. So if they charge one of these two prices, there will be some payoffs. So now we'll look at the actions and the payoffs. So if both companies charge $600, this is the payoff of Carrefour and Lulu, $10,000 profits for each. And if Carrefour charges 600 but Lulu charges 400, Carrefour is going to lose and Lulu is going to win, and so on. Now we want to go to the next slide because we need to get some information and information that we will use for our analysis. So we have here payoff metrics, collusion, dominant strategy, and Nash equilibrium. We will use them all in our previous analysis here, or the previous matrix or table. So we said that this table is called payoff matrix. And then we want to use the terminology collusion to explain our payoff matrix. So collusion means what? Means an agreement on a strategy or an agreement between these two companies on an action to be taken. So here it is an agreement on the to charge the same price. So where they charge same price, so 600 and 600 is the same price, or 400 and 400 are the same prices. So the collusion could happen here and could happen here. And this collusion it's cooperation. It's resulted in the same price. But this first collusion here is an agreement between these two companies to charge the same price, and then they will get the same payoff. But here it's called collusion because this could break the rules of the government, because the government, they defend consumers and they want to make sure that companies do not exploit the market and charge high prices when they agree when firms agree with each other to charge same prices. So this is called collusion. I will remove this. So we have here uh, dominant strategy that we want to know what is it and how to figure it out and know it. And also once we know how to determine the dominant strategy, we can also get the Nash equilibrium. So dominant strategy is the best strategy or action the firm can adopt to get the best outcome. So this we calculate for both firms, and once we calculate the dominant strategy, we could then determine the Nash equilibrium. So in Nash equilibrium, each firm chooses the best strategy. So now we want to calculate the dominant strategy for each of these firms. So what is the dominant strategy for firm Carrefour, and what is the dominant strategy for Lulu? So to know the dominant strategy, you need to ask this specific question in order to get them right. So let us focus now on Carrefour, and then ask this question. So what is the dominant strategy for Carrefour when Lulu charges $600? So look here what Lulu charges 600, and Carrefour has two strategies. Strategy one is to charge 600, or strategy two to charge 400. So calculate the for both strategies the payoff. So we want to know when Carrefour charges or takes the strategy of charging 600 and the strategy of charging 400, and the payoffs when it start to when it charges 600 is 10,000, and if it charges 400, the payoff is 15,000. So here we will find out that 15,000 is greater than 10,000. So we say the dominant strategy for Carrefour when Lulu charges 600 is to charge $400. Again, we still are in Carrefour because we haven't finished the other strategies for Carrefour, because Again, we need to know what is the dominant strategy for Carrefour when Lulu charges 400. So again, I write this question here. So this is what I have written by my handwriting now. The question to help us know what is the dominant strategy for Carrefour when Lulu charges 400. So what is the dominant strategy for Carrefour when Lulu charges 400? Okay, we will take, sorry. So we will, in this case, focus on the action by Lulu, which is 400, and then want to know which strategy of these will be dominant for Carrefour. So at $400, so Carrefour can either charge 600 and get 5,000, or charge $400 and get 7,500. So 7,500 is greater than 5,000. So in this case, we would say that charging $400 is the dominant strategy for Carrefour. So now we will do the same thing for Lulu. So here, Lulu, and then ask the same question. What is the dominant strategy for Lulu when Carrefour charges 600? So at 600, Lulu can either charge 600 or charge 400. It's this one. So if Lulu charges 600, its payoff going to be 10,000. And when Lulu chooses the other strategy, which is to charge 400, its payoff is going to be 15,000. So here 15,000 is greater than 10,000. So the dominant strategy here is to charge 400. Lulu to charge 400. Again, I asked the same question. What is the dominant strategy for Lulu when Carrefour charges 400? So when Carrefour charges 400, Lulu can either charge 600 or 400. So at 600, if Lulu charges 600, the payoff is going to be 5,000. Or when Lulu charges 400, its payoff is going to be 7,500. So 7,500 is greater than 5,000. So the dominant strategy in this case is that Lulu charges 400 because it has higher payoff. So here I write the dominant strategy, and here is the dominant strategy. So all what we have done here is to find out the dominant strategy for both firms. So if I go to the next slide, so we worked on the dominant strategy. So now we want to know the Nash equilibrium. Nash equilibrium is to choose the strategies that will be the best choice for both firms. So if we go to the calculations that we did for dominant strategies, we'll find that the price 400, which is this one, the price 400 is the strategy that is uh, uh, that is found to be happening. So if I erase this, so if you find of what we did, so the strategy of charging 400 is the strategy that was happening every time we calculate for the highest payoffs, or when we calculate dominant strategy. So 400 is the strategy that fulfills Nash equilibrium situation. So this is called Nash equilibrium, because whenever we calculated the dominant strategy, we find out that 400 is the strategy, or the price that should each firm charge. So they meet here. They meet at 400 with these pay offs. These are other types of figuring out Nash equilibrium. So there are three situations: cooperative equilibrium, non-cooperative equilibrium, and prisoner's dilemma. And it's a bit advanced, so we'll just make it simple. So this is another example of figuring out where is the Nash equilibrium. And to know the Nash equilibrium, we need to know the dominant strategy. So to know the dominant strategy, we have two firms, Pepsi Cola and Coca-Cola. So if we want to know what is the dominant strategy for Coca-Cola, in choosing one of these strategies to advertise or not to advertise and advertise, the similar strategies are also existing for Pepsi Cola company. So they have two strategies, whether not to advertise or to advertise. So now we want to know what is the dominant strategy. What is dominant strategy for Coca-Cola company when Pepsi company chooses not to advertise? So for this case, we want to know whether the company will choose Coca-Cola company will choose not to advertise or to advertise. We'll see the payoffs. So the payoff for not to advertise is 750, and to advertise is 900. So 900 is greater than 750. So the dominant strategy is to advertise. Again, we ask another question. What is the dominant strategy? So what is the dominant strategy for Coca-Cola company when Pepsi Cola company chooses to advertise, which is here? And for this situation, again, Coca-Cola has two options, whether to advertise, not to advertise, or to advertise. So not to advertise and to advertise. So we'll calculate, or we'll check the payoffs. So we find out that here it's 400, and if it advertises, its payoff is 500. Again, 500 is greater than 400, so the dominant strategy is to advertise. Okay, now we will do the same to know what is the maximum payoff for Pepsi Cola company. We want to know the dominant strategy for Pepsi. So we say, or we ask this question. So we ask this question, what is the dominant strategy for Pepsi when Coca-Cola chooses not to advertise? So not to advertise, Coca-Cola will have payoff of 750 and payoff of 900 when it takes or chooses for itself the other strategy. So not to advertise, the payoff is 750, and to advertise is 900. Again, 900 is greater than 750, so the dominant strategy is to advertise, which is 900. Okay, the last thing. So again, what is the dominant strategy for Pepsi when Coca-Cola chooses to advertise? So to advertise is here. I do want to know which of these strategies Pepsi can adopt. So not to advertise, its payoff is 400, and to advertise, its payoff is 500. So 500 is greater than 400, so the dominant strategy is A, to advertise. So now what is the Nash equilibrium? Nash equilibrium is the intersection of the all repeated situations of the dominant strategy. So for Pepsi Cola, the dominant strategy is always we find is to advertise. And again, for Pepsi, the dominant strategy that we figured out is to advertise and to advertise. So here is to advertise and to advertise. So they meet here. So this is Nash equilibrium, which stresses on the fact that Nash equilibrium is the best payoff possible for both competing firms in this industry. So best strategy that give this acceptable payoff for these two companies. So we'll go again to another example to know the Nash equilibrium. In order to know Nash equilibrium, we need to figure out the dominant strategy for both competing parties. So we have two competing parties here. They are part of OPEC. So we have Saudi Arabia and Nigeria. And there are two strategies to follow, either to have low output or high output of oil. Also, Nigeria has also two options or two strategies, is to produce at low output or to produce at high output. So let us find out what is the dominant strategy for Saudi Arabia. So to find out the dominant strategy for Saudi Arabia, we need to ask this question: what is the dominant strategy for Saudi Arabia when Nigeria chooses low output? So this is Nigeria, and it is now choosing low output. So what the best of these strategies for Saudi Arabia when Nigeria chooses low output? So we need to know the payoffs of low output. So low output and the payoffs of high output. So in the low output, the payoff is 100 million, and for high output, the payoff for Saudi Arabia is 80 million. Again, as we see that for low output, the payoff is higher than high output. So the dominant strategy, DS, is dominant strategy for Saudi Arabia is to choose uh, low output strategy. Now we ask another question, and this is the question. What is the dominant strategy for Saudi Arabia when Nigeria chooses high output? So this is Nigeria, and now it is choosing high output. So what is the best strategy of these two strategies for Saudi Arabia when Nigeria chooses high output? So there are two strategies: low for Saudi Arabia, low output, and high output. In low output, it is 75, and for high output, the payoff is 60. So as we see that 75 is greater than 60, so the dominant strategy for Saudi Arabia when Nigeria chooses high output is that Saudi Arabia chooses low output. Now we also do the same thing for Nigeria, and for Nigeria we want to know what is the dominant strategy, and we ask this question: what is the dominant strategy for Nigeria when Saudi Arabia chooses high let us start with low output. When Saudi Arabia, so what is the dominant strategy for Nigeria when Saudi Arabia chooses low output? So this is low output, so we need to know what are the payoffs. So the payoffs of two strategies that Nigeria can adopt: low output and high output. So low output and high output. So here we find out that Nigeria payoffs is 10 million, and if it chooses high output, its payoff is 15. So 15 is greater than 10. So the dominant strategy for Nigeria when Saudi Arabia chooses low output is that Nigeria chooses high output. Now we want to know also what is, so now we want to ask this question, what is the dominant strategy for Nigeria when Saudi Arabia chooses high output? So at high output, when Saudi Arabia chooses high output, there are two payoffs. So Nigerians can choose either low output strategy, which is this one, or high output strategy. So at low output, it gets 7, and at high output, it gets 10. So again, 10 is greater than 7. So the dominant strategy for Nigeria here is to have high output. Now the question is, what is Nash equilibrium for this situation? So you see that in Saudi Arabia case, it is low output and low output, and for Nigeria it is high output and high output. So what is the interaction of low output and high output. Where is the interaction that could meet what we are saying here, low output and high output? So low output for Saudi Arabia and low output is the best strategy for Saudi Arabia, and high output is the best strategy for Nigeria. So out of these for Saudi Arabia, low output, this is low output, and high output for Nigeria. So the Nash equilibrium is here. So Nash equilibrium is that Saudi Arabia produces 75 million barrel or profit. It produces low output to achieve 75 million profit, and Nigeria produces at high output and makes 15 million. So this is the Nash equilibrium, and I hope that you practice this because it's a bit complicated and needs practice in order to have the master on the Nash equilibrium and prisoner's dilemma and game theory topic. Thank you.